Hello. Standing before us is not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, but six Ford CVHs. And I should specify that they are the North American CVHs, and they're all the 80s motors. So all these here are only going to be North American 1.6s and 1.9s from 1981 to 1990. You won't see any other CVHs outside of that range here, sorry. So if you are in some other part of the world and you don't have these engines, this video might not be of much help to you, but it is aimed at people here in North America or other parts of the world that have imported North American Escort CXPs and want to know which engine they have. There's a few key differences. So like right here I have a 1.6. They were all from 81 to 85. And over here I have a 1.9 and they were from late 85, so I say 86. So they were from 86 to 1990. And then they carried on again from 91 on up. But they had some significant changes at that point again. So that's why we're kind of only looking at the 81 to 90 engines. But we'll start with the block. All the 1.6s, they say right on 1.6 in that location, every single one. On the 1.9s, there's actually no marking there. It's been replaced with extra webbing. So you can see that the 1.9 actually has a lot of webbing around the block. And while the 1.9 has its the part number abbreviation there, you can see it says E6EE. And the 1.6s, they usually all have them towards the bottom here. As you see, that one says E3EE. And that's going to be the giveaway too. If you see that on the top right, most likely a 1.9, down there most likely a 1.6, and the part number itself will help you confirm that. Any that say E1, E3, or I think some say E5, but E1 and E3 will be 1.6s because that numeric digit right after the E dictates the year. So E3 means it's a 1983 casting, and that usually meant it was from 83 to 84. And then these usually had an E5, E6, E8, E7, because that meant they started in late 85 for those models of 1.9s, and then 86, 87, 88, and so forth into 90, and then it went further, but again, those engines are different. Otherwise, the rest of the block, there's one other big difference. That's going to be the bell housing end. As you can see here, this one goes in and out and in and out and in and out up. While on the 1.9s, they're all just round here. And they did the same thing with the transmissions, where the 1.6 trannies went in and out and in and out, perfectly matching that mating surface. The transmissions for these 1.9s were completely round to match those mating surfaces. But when you look on the front side, the casting lines are still there from the prior years. So if you wanted your 1.9 to look like a 1.6, you could go and cut all those out. And same with the webbing on the block. But unless you had them side by side, it would be hard to tell. Because otherwise, there's no really big difference. With the 1.9s, the deck height right here is where you'll want to measure it. You'll find on the 1.9s it's about 1/4 of an inch taller than the 1.6s. But otherwise, the block will have a few differences like this. This is the oil return for the turbo models, but it's still an oil return on all of the other CVHs. It's just on the 1.6s they usually drill a hole, thread it, and then cap it off with the actual bolt. And then the turbo models, of course, have a drain, just like a stainless steel drain for the turbo drain back. But on the 1.9s, they were never turbocharged from the factory, so a lot were simply cast flat here, so the pedestal would have absolutely nothing on it. It would just be flat, no hole or anything. Some were drilled, and then it had a Welsh plug inserted so they were capped off that way, and others were drilled and tapped and had a bolt just like these guys. So you can see that coming in a few ways. If you see yours is capped, there's been a hole drilled and capped, or if it's just been casted without anything there, it's definitely 1.9. Otherwise, around the block, things are more or less the same. Some of the differences are kind of trivial stuff that you can remove and interchange, like the time and cover. The 1.9s are this two-piece design that's pretty curvy, and that's the second piece, is it has a plastic backing on it. So the backing is always attached to the engine unless you remove all the pulleys. So the backing just stays there, and the cover bolts inside of it. That backing keeps it from moving about, whereas the earlier ones, they move about like this. They have a few bolt holes, but they're overall kind of square. And they're actually casted with the Ford emblem instead of having it stickered on, anything like that, But yeah, there's a few other trivial things like the mounts. There's a number of different alternator mounts in steel and aluminum. The water pipes vary, but those usually stay with the car. Same with the exhaust and valve covers. There's a variety of different valve covers. You see even more over there, but they usually just stay with the car because the vents they have on the back are orientated for a specific car. And then same with the exhaust and the water pipes and dipsticks around them. So those are specific to the car. It's not to, so I wouldn't go off of those alone unless the engine is sitting loose somewhere and it seems to be original, because those are all things that could be changed really easily. But otherwise, something you can look for is one thing you can look for is this oil drain back, and it's specifically the one for the valve cover. So it's meant to be a crankcase breather equalizer, so it allows the crankcase to vent into the valve cover and vice versa. All the 1.6s will have that, and many 1.9s will have that. On the 1.6s, the hose itself will be routed differently and look funny compared to other 1.6s. It all depends on what kind of trim the engine is. But on any of the EFI engines, you won't see that there, and the valve cover will not have anything for it. You can see this turbo model has nothing, and then this one down here is an EFI model of some sort, and it has absolutely nothing there as well. On that one, actually, it is drilled and then capped off, and that's usually how these are when they don't have the hoses. The hole is drilled, but it's just plugged with a cap. Otherwise, there's not too many major differences between these. There's plenty of on-paper differences, and we'll go over those sometime. You can actually look them up, but I will put them in the video because there's plenty of on-paper differences and little things here and there. But the last big thing will be the oil pans. So the oil pans are kind of the telltale here too. All the 1.6s had these pressed or stamped steel oil pans, while all the 1.9s, even later into the 90s and all the 2.0s, they all had aluminum pans. And when they made this change, they also changed the bolt pattern of these guys. So you can't interchange these, the bolt holes just don't line up. But what you could do is you can use the 1.6 pan, drill additional holes in it, and then cap off or plug them with welds, whatever you want to do. You can cover up the rest. But with some work, you can put these steel pans on 1.9s, but realistically, you can't really put the 1.9 oil pans on the 1.6s. So there's some compatibility there, but not really any reverse compatibility. But yes, that's otherwise it. If I missed something, do let me know. I'll put it in the description for you guys. But otherwise, yeah, you can look in the description. I'll have all the 1.6 stats versus 1.9 stats. Yeah, just some of the inside stuff and some of the outside stuff. I won't go too deep into all. This has this horsepower on this year, and no. YouTube's description thing is not that big, and I'm sure you guys aren't that interested in it. But anyhow, video's long enough, so I'll see you sometime soon.